I'd like to call this meeting to order. Justin is not here this evening, so I guess I'll do it. Okay, Joe Abdella, Greg Kava, Victoria Salen, Stephanie Kolnick, Angela. I want to say your name as beautifully as Stephanie, but I'm going to work on that. And Alex McNaughton. Justin is not here. I am here. Jane Sargent, Pete Tagley, Mary Weber, and Chris is not here. Okay, great. Thank you. Going down to public comment on agenda items. Does anybody want to say anything? Don't all step up at once. Put your microphone on, please. Microphone.
A lot of the times in our packets, we will get things that request permission to view them. And so when people submit their things, I wish they would make them be open so that we can view them without having to ask for permission.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Any other public comment? I don't see everyone rushing. So, okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to take anything off the consent agenda? Anyone? Hearing no. Okay. Moving on to the board chair's report. I have a couple of things that I just wanted to briefly discuss. First, we had our first intermunicipal elementary school committee meeting this last week, and I think it went really well for our first conversation. I felt like it was very open and honest, and I felt encouraged by the conversations that we had. And it was really encouraging to me to just see how everybody spoke about their place in terms of what they would like to see, but there was a willingness to everybody work together to come together to bring options to the community that I think the community would be interested in. We talked about a survey, and then the conversation shifted to using possibly Panorama to do the survey, which I actually think is a better idea after having a conversation, which again is part of having in that committee, is kind of talking about free flowing it and just kind of talking together as a group and getting a sense of how everybody feels. So we're shifted to having Panorama create our survey, which I think is really important. So I'm encouraged by that. And we will discuss this week when we'll be meeting again. We feel like we want to keep up with the momentum, so we might do a meeting in December and then move on to January. So that was really great. Tomorrow, reminder that we have our interviews tomorrow night here for the two search firms. The first interview is at 6, and the second one comes, I'd said at 6:45, figured a half hour with each. So I obviously make sure you put it in your calendars. Yes, please. Yeah. And you and I talked to you. Yep. Because you had said you had had the meeting prior. Okay, phew. That made me nervous because I was like, okay. And so we have that. And then the other thing I just wanted to share, seems like I'm on a roll. What? It is. We're going to meet here in the library. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I just come a few minutes before 6 so we can just get ourselves settled. I was fortunate enough to attend both games this weekend. My husband and I went to see the field hockey game in Wethersfield, and then yesterday to the soccer game in Hartford. And I'll let Lori speak about it, but what I'll just speak to is really more of the same. I just love the sense of community when we're at these games, and whether you're on the other side of the state, seeing the littles from all the elementary schools. And actually at the field hockey game, I was holding reach kids in each arm with their little pom poms. And the alumni of the younger and the older were there for both games, and it was incredible. And there was such a sense of pride, and for being such a small but mighty school, I just felt the love, and it was incredible. And I'm super biased, but I think the girls in the field hockey team are a stellar group of young women, and I feel the same for the boys. I just think that we have so much to be proud of, not just on the field, but off too. So kudos to them. And I just would like to congratulate Justin Ongley, because Peyton, his daughter, is on the field hockey, and Mr. Joe Dellis and Gavin. So there's just a lot to be proud of. So that's it.
Yes.
I really appreciate that Roxbury and Washington put the effort into the escorting of the parade. It was amazing to have that kind of recognition for both the field hockey, because we did see the field hockey parade as we were having a team dinner that evening on Saturday, and then just coming back from Hartford and meeting up in Roxbury and being part of that parade. It was amazing. My kids were like, well, it was a long bus ride. I'm like, but it was worth it, wasn't it? And they're like, yep, it was definitely worth it. And just having that recognition, I think really makes a big difference, because we're obviously a small community, and the people that came out to see, I mean, I saw Patrick out there on the side of the road. He had a group of people there, and we picked up on the parade in Roxbury, and then followed it all the way into Washington and back up to the school here. So it was really a proud moment.
Yeah. And I feel like I just need to do a shout out to Brandon too. So, Brandon.
Well, I was going to wait till the end, but really a congratulations to both teams. And I know Matt's going to be here at the next meeting, and he's bringing all the all-stars on all the teams. And that was expected anyway, but we're going to bring the, obviously the all-stars from the two teams and the coaches as well, to celebrate all of them publicly. And yes, there was such pride. Unfortunately, I was out of town. I felt horrible, but I was getting so my phone was blowing up with text. So it was quite a weekend, and everyone should be so proud. So we will celebrate them again the next meeting that we have. And I did send Matt, and I put together, actually Matt did a great job really detailing everything, all of the wins, their successes throughout the season. And we sent that out to the entire community, to all the parents and all of our staff members too.
If you want to see the videos, they're on Facebook.
Oh, I'd love
I think Jim Stinson put one out, and I can't remember who the other one was to put out for the girls.
And I think I sent you lots of great pics too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Really.
So following the baseline data, if you remember that we collected last spring on the climate, we sent out our surveys already, the first survey for this year, to staff, students, and families, and they're going to be asked to complete it. And then again, it's hosted by that same platform that you talked about, Panorama. And then we're going to have another survey in the spring. So at the end, I think I mentioned in my Sunday highlights that collectively we'll look at all of the data, and we'll be reporting that out to you as well. This Thursday, the 21st, SVS has or is hosting a parent-student night, and that's for all prospective students who want to attend Chippewa Valley in the fall. And then in personnel, we have Jenna Raymond. She's an art teacher at all the elementary schools. She is resigned, effective, it's already happened, 11/15. And then we have one field trip notification, and this is the one I've already mentioned, to Radio City Music Hall in New York, and that's December 13 for grades 9 through 12. And then Yukon and Mansfield on November 25th, and that's grade 9. That's all I have to
decision. Thanks, Lori. Treasurer's report.
I have nothing to report unless Nicole has something pressing. Numbers look good. We have not had an F&O meeting. We will be having one on December 2nd. So that will not have anything to report there either.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to committee reports, agri-science, Mary.
I have nothing to report. The next meeting is December 9th.
Thank you. Curriculum, you were supposed to meet this evening and unfortunately Justin is not feeling well, so we have to cancel that. At Advance, Joe?
Our latest meeting on November 7th was a Zoom meeting, which I attended. During this meeting, our board of directors approved a revised Ed Advance resolution to list them as an LEA, which is a local education authority. They were listed as another entity before because they had to apply for certain grants, and that's how they had to be listed. But now that's the change was eminent to be able to apply for other grants. It's a weird thing, and it was very strange. It was the way it was explained, but that was a simple layman term. Also, a grant application was approved for the Regional Performance Incentive Program to support the Ed Advance Regional Transportation Collaborative. Along with that, they will be Ed Advance will be purchasing electric vans to replace the current vans that they use right now. They will have to install 3 new charging stations for these new vehicles, and that should be done sometime next year. Ribbon cutting, grand opening ceremony was held on October 2nd or October 16th for the College and Career Accelerator Program, which was launched in August, but they just finally opened up the building to everyone on the 16th. $124,000 grant or donation was made by an outside source for purchasing machinist equipment for the program, for one of the programs, which is a great windfall for them. And our next meeting is January 2nd. This November meeting was our last one.
Thanks. Finance and operations, Alex?
Once again, I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Labor negotiations, Greg?
Yeah, we had a meeting scheduled with the administrators union last week that was canceled due to the illness of the negotiator for the union. So we're going to be meeting again shortly. Yes, tomorrow. in
Oh,
fact.
Great, thank you. Policy committee, nothing to report at this time. Wow, we're really cruising through this. And strategic long range planning committee, nothing to report. That was short and sweet. Old business, consider and if appropriate, approve the tuition in rate increase for K through 12 as recommended by finance and operations. Alex?
We spent a lot of time going over this, trying to figure out whether we should be making up for lost time and the fact that we hadn't increased the tuition in rates. And the general consensus was, no, we'll let bygones be bygones. We'll start here, not this year, but next year, going up 3% with approval of the board. That would be on all levels, 3%. And we need a motion for that.
We do. So moved. Second? Second?
Yeah.
An increase of 3% upon approval. Approved by the board you're talking about is tonight.
Right.
So that it will continue to increase at a level of 3% a year unless and until the board changes that.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Any other discussion?
This also gives the parents a heads up of what the tuition is going to be in the following years. It may have some bearing on whether some people choose to do the program, or may mean more people will opt to do the program knowing that is the best deal in town.
Nicole,
I just wanted to clarify too, when Alex says all levels, he means K through 12.
K through 12 does not include reach. Pete, do you have a microphone? Nope, it's not on. Wait for it to be green.
Okay, green. How was the price determined? The percentage increase? How did you come to the?
Well, basically, we thought rather than tie it to some index, it would be better to set it at a fixed rate so that people would know in advance. So you know what it's going to be next year, the year after, and the year after. If we did it to a CPI or something, it could jump all over the place, and the parents wouldn't know until whatever the index we chose to go off of, was published.
3% number come from exactly what? How did you come to that particular percentage? Because you don't hear much about 3% increases in anything. Usually much larger. So
basically, it was a consensus of the board. Some people wanted more, some people wanted less.
okay,
We had, I think as high as 4, 1 3.5, and the rest were all 3s.
okay.
Any other questions, discussion? No? Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Abstained? Yeah, no stretching. Great, so it passes. Thank you very much, Alex, for that. I appreciate it. Moving on to new business, to consider and if appropriate, approve field trip request to Pennsylvania Farm Show Complex and Expo Center in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on January 10th through 11th, 2025 for grades 9 through 12. Ms. Davenport is here to discuss.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us here on your agenda. So we had done our first farm show trip last year around January, same time as it will be this year. We are planning on going to the Pennsylvania Farm Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's a few hours drive. It's an overnight trip. It's about 48 hours, 2 days. They leave Friday morning, get back Saturday evening. It's on January 10th and 11th. We are going to be having, or aiming to have about 15-ish kids plus 2 or 3 adult chaperones. We're going to be joining the Litchfield County 4-H group that we joined last year, which actually some of our students are a part of 4-H and going on behalf of 4-H. So it's a fun kind of opportunity for FFA and 4-H students to kind of congregate and get to know each other since there's already a lot of overlap. So it's about $235 a student. They're going to be sharing 2 kids to a room, which is, they all appreciate that. And we're going to be doing a bunch of different fun things. So these are just some photos from, well, I'll show you photos in a second, but the logistics are we leave Friday morning, we drive a few hours, get to the Turkey Hill kind of ice cream production facility. Turkey Hill is one of the largest kind of dairy producers in this part of the country. So we get to go to their actual home base. We get to partake in a ice cream making experience where they learn about how ice cream is made and they get to DIY their own flavor. And then when we're finished with that, we head to the farm show a few hours, have dinner, and then we could go to a really fun rodeo. Then the next morning, we finish up at the farm show for a few hours and then leave to get back right by around dinner time on Saturday. So just some photos, photos from last year, just the cool stuff that they get to do. All of this is also on our social media as well. If you're interested, you can scroll back, but we try to post a lot of the cool stuff we do. So at this show, there's thousands and thousands of different vendors of varying agricultural products or companies or just exhibits. So these students get to learn all about different types of agriculture. Pennsylvania being a relatively bigger agri-science type of state, they have a lot of variety and a lot of cool exhibits already. So they get to explore different plant science, animal science, food science, even some mechanic, like ag mechanics type vendors, as well as just a lot of cool DIY little projects like the typical butter sculpture that you see at Big E. It's basically a bigger version of Big E essentially, but it's all indoors, which is really cool. So they get to explore around. Honestly, you could spend a whole week there. There's so much to do. So lots of cool stuff for them to engage in. They get to chat with industry professionals and gain these professional contacts. They also, again, get to see a lot of either student or kind of youth created projects. So they're really huge in 4-H and FFA in Pennsylvania as well. So they usually have different chapters or programs have booths where they have student created projects as well, which kind of helps give our students an idea of potential projects they could engage in as well. Then we also have, there's also different livestock shows actually going on. So for most Pennsylvania people, this is one of their qualifying livestock exhibits, or exhibitions, similar to how Big E is for us. So they get to watch live shows and interact with the contestants, which a lot of our animal science students appreciate this opportunity. There's also a bunch of other fun stuff for them to do. There's like a little mechanical bull. There's actually a calving pen. So they have multiple cows that are in the process or, you know, very close to their due date. So they get to watch a calf be born. They have sheep shearing. They have a whole petting zoo with a bunch of goats and stuff. Super, super fun. And they all seem to really enjoy it. And then we have the rodeo. So again, we don't have a ton of rodeos in our state, so it's really cool to be at like kind of a bigger style one, seeing a lot of the cool typical rodeo contests. And then this is the Turkey Hill experience I was explaining. So they have like an hour or two long workshop where they get to learn about the history of ice cream production, how Turkey Hill does it, their facilities. Then they get to make their own flavor, so they really enjoy that. There's also a whole upstairs to this area where they kind of play different games and learn about the science behind ice cream making. So they get little free samples, they get to buy all the fun merch, and then they get to do these little like these games and stuff, flavor creation, manic measurements, stuff like that. So for the most part, this is a very fun trip. Our students seem to thoroughly enjoy it last year, and it's relatively cost effective for our students. And we hope that you guys support us on our endeavors to go to this trip. Are there any questions?
Alex?
How far do people come to this? I mean, are the people from Illinois, California? What's the range or the?
I would say most people are probably in kind of from Maine to Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, but there are definitely some people, especially exhibitors in the animal science world of like livestock and dairy showing and everything that probably travel farther. So I bet you $100 you have representatives from every one of the 50 states. You'll just probably have more of them within a few 100 miles radius type of thing. But even Pennsylvania alone could populate this whole thing. There's thousands and thousands of people. It's a week-long farm show. We're doing the tail end, the second weekend of it. So it's almost like the busiest day of Big E, packed all the time. So lots of cool opportunities to explore and meet new people.
But thank you.
Of course. Any other questions I can answer?
Move to approve it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a great time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Can you bring us back some samples of the Turkey Hill ice cream, please? I mean, that's the least you could do. Great, thank you. Okay, next up is the Connecticut State Accountability Report. Harry Snowden and Dr. Rodriguez.
So I'm going to start just by giving a brief overview for those of you that don't know what the Region 12 Next Generation Accountability Report is. And is, as defined by the state, it's a broad set of indicators, 12 indicators to be exact, that really do help tell a story about how well we're preparing our students for college and career and life. And what is significant about this system is that it attempts to move beyond just simply test scores and graduation rates. And instead, it does provide a more holistic, multi-factor perspective of district and school performance. And it incorporates student growth over time. The report was developed and it does rely heavily on consult with district and school leaders, Connecticut educators, state and national experts, and the Connecticut State Department of Ed staff. So the system was originally conceived and developed under the ESEA flexibility and approved by the U.S. Department of Education, and that was back in August of 2015. So it's been around for a bit. And then it was later included as part of the Connecticut State Plan under Every Student Succeeds Act, which is ESSA. And then if you look at the purpose of the system is, as I said, intended to, one, track progress, how we're doing, help schools and districts certainly make improvements over time. So I do want to emphasize this is internal information for us, very different from looking across, between and across other districts when we look at scores in standardized tests to see how we're faring. In this case, it really is based on all of those indicators. It really is information for us to learn and to grow and to make improvements. Show where potential supports might be needed. Also to recognize what we do well and what successes we're having in terms of student academic growth, and promote transparency throughout the school community. And of course, provide reliable information that we can report to all of you and share with families and staff as well. So that is the overall purpose of the system. And then I mentioned earlier that it provides a more holistic approach to evaluating our success, a district success in areas for improvement. During its inception, the Connecticut State Department of Ed developed it with extensive feedback from district and school leaders. And so the benefits of the system focus on growth as well as academic achievement. It helps to also narrow down the curriculum to only not just tested subjects, for example, putting more emphasis on math versus social studies or English versus the arts. So you will see when Carrie gets to all of the indicators, there's an indicator, for example, of arts access. Is there enough or adequate access for students when it comes to the arts? So it doesn't just focus on the academic side of things, and you'll see that. It expands, which I like, the ownership of accountability so that all staff, like arts, like PE, other non-tested subject areas, they all have the responsibility for preparing students in all areas, all subject areas. And it pushes leaders to view the results as a tool and to track improvement efforts over time. So that's basically just to give you a very brief kind of narrative around that. And then Carrie's going to dig into our report this year.
So Ben, you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So first, before I just want to say that all this information is public information on the edsite.ct.gov website. So anybody could go to that website and see all the information that I'm about to share with you. We're going to focus in on, we're going to look at the Region 12 accountability report, but you can also get accountability reports for individual schools. So there's a Chappaqua accountability report, a Booth Free School accountability report, and so on and so forth. And if you go to that website, you could see all of this for the individual schools. So these are the 12 indicators that Lori was just talking about: graduation rates, absenteeism, college and career readiness. She mentioned physical fitness and arts access. It is a more well-rounded view of a school district than, the presentation I did for you a month ago when we really were just looking at academic data. This is a bigger picture of a school district. Go ahead, Ben, you can go to the next slide. So we're going to look at some graphs, and these are not easy to see from where you are, but I know you guys also have copies of this yourselves. The left-hand side on every graph you're going to look at is the state of Connecticut graph. So all students in the state of Connecticut. The right-hand graph on every one we're going to see is the Region 12 graph. And what you'll also see is there's a gray line. Do you see sort of that gray line toward the top of the graph? That's the target. So on every slide that you're going to see, there's a gray line. The state of Connecticut sort of sets a target score for each one of these indicators that we're going to look at.
So this first one is the overall accountability index. The target is 85. They want you to get, they would like all districts to be at an 85. It's the percentage of total possible points earned on all of the available indicators. You can see Region 12 on the right. This is, and every graph you're going to look at is 3 years worth of data. So you can see that we had a 76.7 in 21-22. I'm going to pull it up on my screen, so I'm making sure I'm saying the right dates here. And then in 22-23, our total index moved up to 77.3. And in 23-24, we're at an 81.0. So you can see we're getting closer and closer to that target of 85. So this is all of Region 12 overall accountability index. All right, go ahead, Ben. Let's take a look at the next one. This is the next set of indicators, which are the performance index. This is really the academic achievement we're looking at here. And this screen shows, and again, state of Connecticut on the left, Region 12 on the right. You can see that the target for that is 75. There's that gray line across the top. The dark blue line represents language arts, all students. The lighter blue line represents science, all students, and the gray line represents math, all students. So again, you can see here, we see some growth on the Region 12 side in all 3 of those performance areas for all students. Please just stop me if you have a question. We'll just keep on going, right? Unless anybody has a question. Go ahead.
Do you have any, I've noticed on a lot of these charts, there seems to be a significant decline in 2022, 23 district level. Is there a reason for that, or is there something you can pin that to, or is it just an anomaly? The cohort.
This is all students in Region 12. So this would represent all of the, data that we have in math and language arts. Smarter Balance scores would play into this. SAT scores would play into this. I don't know. I don't have a theory.
I was going to say it's not. Year over year, it's not the same because you're losing a class and you're gaining a class.
That's correct. These are different students every time. Now, a large group of them are the same because we only lose 1 grade every single year and gain it 1 new grade. But yeah, that's true. It's not apples to apples. These are 3 different groups of students here. Sure. That's right. That's right. Which there's a big influx of new students in 9th grade. That's exactly right. Yeah. Here. Yeah.
This is 3rd through 8th. 3rd through 12th.
This is all academic data. Not all the way. Don't take.
So 9th graders, 10th graders don't take any of those. They're not in this.
So that even narrows down.
But counted in other indicators.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yes. This particular indicator, which is academic performance, those aren't tested grades, 9th and 10th, for example. So on this particular graph, 9th and 10th graders are not represented, but you will see in other graphs they are. Yes, correct. That is correct. That's right. I should have said that from the beginning. Sorry. All right, we're ready to go on to the next.
Can I just make
Oh,
a
sure.
point that I don't know if everyone has this, but it's not in my folder. I have to request access. So at some point, it would be great if we could all get a copy.
I have given everybody access at this point. I made it viewable by, it says anyone with Region 12. Are you in your Region 12 account?
I am. Yeah, I'm in the folder for this meeting and it's grayed out and it says request access. I don't want to sidetrack the conversation, but it would be
However,
great if we could all get access because that's really hard to follow.
All right. Okay, it's from the Gmail. Okay, you should have it now.
Got it. Thank
Okay,
you.
great, terrific. All right, so this next indicator is also about academic performance, but instead of achievement, there's a focus here on growth. Lori mentioned this before, that one of the features of the accountability report is that there's an emphasis on growth, which is fantastic because growth comes before achievement. We want to see growth improve. We want to see students achieving growth targets, and then we know they're going to eventually achieve at the performance target. So again, state of Connecticut on the left, region 12 on the right. The graphs you're looking at right here are for language arts and math only. Science is not represented on this. Same standardized, based on standardized state tests. And you can see again, you know, Greg commented on that little dip in 22, 23, and then back up for 23, 24 in math and language arts. That's what I think.
I'm sorry, can I ask
Go
a
ahead, yeah.
question about this graph? So in
Yeah.
the preceding graph, we
Yep.
were performing close to the standard and far above the average Connecticut student, right?
Yep.
In this graph, we're pretty much at the same academic growth trajectory. So is it just that we are not improving at a pace that really deviates from the pace of the typical student in the state of Connecticut? Is that what it's saying?
That's what this graph would indicate to me. The state sets growth targets for all students based on their standardized test performance. And it's a very basic formula. You know, you get a certain score on the Smarter Balance, and the state is wanting you to either keep going on the trajectory or maybe increase your trajectory. And so they'll set a growth target for each student based on their score. This graph would indicate to me that our students are growing at a rate similar to the rate of other Connecticut students, or the average rate of growth of Connecticut students, which is different from how they're performing, which is, you know, from the
Got it.
graph before, performing at a higher level. Yep.
Thanks.
Ready, Ben? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah.
An assumption here, but if we're performing at a higher rate, but growing at a similar rate, does that mean that our kids are starting testing at a higher rate, that our third graders are probably coming in testing higher? And I don't know if that's something we can attribute necessarily to our district then, or if that's just, that's kind of our demographic is coming in at a level where they're probably already going to test at a higher level.
I would say yes to that. Yes, I would say that we, our students come in performing at a higher level than third graders in other parts of the state. And then we grow at a similar rate. But we have an edge because our students walk in the door performing at higher levels. Okay, this one is chronic absenteeism. So you can see that we've had a drop as well in our drop in our chronic absenteeism as at a higher rate than the state rate. You know, a lot of people talk about the COVID, how COVID really affected chronic absenteeism, and that across the state, absenteeism skyrocketed. That's not hard to imagine why, and that it's taken some time, and you can see it's still taking some time for those levels to drop off. But it's really great to see that in just 3 years, we've cut our chronic absenteeism in half.
So this graph is invert, you want it to be going lower.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that aside from the COVID drop, I know that all of the principals have been working on absenteeism. That was a focus. So it's good to see that.
Yep. Making a difference.
I think that answered my question. I was going to ask, do you attribute this to any particular efforts? I know that people had their heads were exploding over this for quite a while. I know that the administration was really working hard to try to do something, but I wasn't quite sure if there was anything you can specifically say was particularly effective.
I can tell you they were making calls home. They were bringing more families in. They were looking at policy and really, I mean, a lot of districts sort of had to go with the flow because of COVID, but then after COVID, they really said, all right, we have to have that expectation back again and make sure that we're working with families to get kids back into school. And they worked really hard, and I think that's showing.
Well done.
Yeah.
No,
All right, so next is college and career readiness. This one's a little bit, I had to really read a few times the description of this. So this slide on college and career readiness has two indicators: taking courses and passing exams. And I'll read you what the description is. Taking courses, which is the blue line that you're looking at there, is the percentage of students in grades 11 and 12 who are participating in at least one of the following during high school: 2 courses in AP, baccalaureate, dual enrollment, or 2 CTE courses in one of 17 career clusters, or 2 workplace experience courses. Passing exams, which is the orange line that you see there, the description is the percentage of students in grades 11 and 12 achieving either the college and career benchmark on at least one of the following: SAT or ACT or AP or international baccalaureate, or earning 3 or more dual enrollment credits. So it's complex. The numbers that are going into those lines are spread out over several different types of courses and exams that kids might be taking. In that group right there, we had 85 11th graders and 77 12th graders. So each student in that group is about 1.62 percentage points. So you can see a little bit of a drop, especially in the passing exams. That's the equivalent of about 2 students when you think about how many students we have in our district. Still something we should be paying attention to, for sure. And making sure, I think we should be pretty happy with the taking courses. We've got kids taking courses. I think we need to be paying attention to the passing courses and making sure that we are studying why those numbers are where they are.
Yeah, there's sometimes people teach to the test, sometimes they don't. Do you think this might be a function of not teaching to the test?
Passing or scores and thinking about that. But remember, it's not just that. It's SAT scores. It's earning 3 or more dual enrollment in credits. It's more than just AP.
Well, and also AP, the teachers are trained, so I hate to call it teaching to the test, but those courses are purposefully designed around passing the exam. And why that is so they can gain credit for college. With the SAT, used to be someone else handles that, they take it after school or on a Saturday. Not anymore. It's more integrated into the curriculum now because it is our state standardized test, which is different. So I would say that it's part of the class now, especially AP. That is the course.
So can I ask a question? So aside from the downward trend in both metrics for our students, what surprises me somewhat is that we're below the state average in taking courses. And do we have a sense of why that is? Is there a reason that the level of ambition of our students somehow is lower than the aggregate
So
results for everyone else?
What I can tell you is this report just came out last week. I have shared it with the Chippewa team and with the elementary teams, of course, because all schools are represented. This is obviously more of a high school, and we are digging into it and trying to figure out what's going on. I do think, something I've heard of a little bit is that our agri-science students, their schedule that they have to follow alters the courses they take sometimes. And in some ways that can be a real asset because some of those courses are dual enrollment classes. And so in a way they can bump this kind of score up. But in some cases, they don't take other classes that they might. And understandably, they have limited time, what they can do with their credits here at the school. So that's just something I think we should think about and make sure that we are providing as much opportunity in our schedule as we possibly can and encouraging kids to take classes, these challenging courses, as much as we can. But that is a piece of the puzzle, I think, the different kind of schedule that an agri-science student has, especially 11th and 12th grade.
And that's why an 8-period day at a high school far exceeds a 7-period day. That's one of the reasons for that. You'll see that Jen just turned to me and said, could it be scheduled? Yes, it could be scheduled, especially arts access. We've seen that in many districts where the arts access is low. It's not for not wanting kids to take it. They can't get to it. So, and the same is true of high level courses as well, or courses in general. So we do look at that and we think about that when we schedule or try to revise a high school schedule to open up access.
Got it. And just one follow-up question. And this is a limited data point, I realize, but when I see, what a sheet came home with my now 7th grade daughter about sort of the math track for kids through middle and high school. And there's the accelerated track or whatever we call it, and then the typical track. And what's unclear to me is, are there multiple on and off ramps for these different tracks? Because I could see that being another reason, right? If you're not out the gate in the accelerated track, if you don't have an on ramp later in your academic career, then that will be forever off limits to you. And so I'm hoping that's not the case, especially since my daughter's not on the accelerated track. But all of that being said, I think that's something else to think about. Do we have multiple opportunities for them to go on and off these?
My immediate answer is I believe that there are multiple opportunities, especially once a student gets to 9th grade. I think in middle school, you get into that accelerated track or you don't. But once kids get into high school, from my conversations and being part of the department meetings and also the leadership team meetings, I do think that kids have opportunities and that teachers are very encouraging of kids who they feel are capable and ready to try something more challenging, even if they hadn't in the past. But I'm writing that down so that I can make sure I follow up on that.
Great. And I just think that if that's communicated, it should also go home, because I think kids are not always the ones who are saying, hey, I have an opportunity to do X, Y, Z. And then the opportunity passes and the family never knew.
I will pass that along.
I know you didn't make this slide. I don't love the state, but so few data points, knowing that there's such variability in the information there. I will ask, because I'm not so familiar with the CTE courses, what do they mean by like passing the exams? Is there like like for AP, passing is I guess a 3 or above? So anyone on this orange line is a 3, 4, 5. Is that how that works? And then for CTE, is it just passing the class? Is there like an end of class, like exit exam type of thing? I'm just not sure exactly how that's calculated in there.
To my knowledge, but I think that's a great question. No, my understanding is that it's in a CTE situation, it's passing the class. There isn't any sort of state level test for that or standardized way that they measure that. No. Correct. And it said that in order to be sort of accounted in this, that on the blue line, 2 CTE courses in one of 17 career clusters. So those are students who took 2 CTE courses are included in there.
And so much data there.
Trying.
Yeah. I have a
Sure.
question. Other than, do you know anyone with funding to get another microphone?
I was just like, note to self, we're gonna buy more arms.
I know.
But for Perkins grant purposes, when we write the Perkins grant in the fall each year, all of our agri-science pathways and all of our agri-science courses count as CTE courses. Is that true of this graph?
That I don't know. Let's, I'm making a little note. They should, but let's make sure of that. Let's make sure of that.
But can I say to your point, and I totally agree, that's why I said we can't really make comparisons with this data. The variability is incredible. Well, it is. But I think as we go on to what I really looked at is the success we've had despite all of that in this district, which is nice to see.
Greg?
All right, next one.
Karen,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I guess the takeaway from this slide for me in your presentation is that obviously we want to make sure that kids have opportunities to take these classes. We want to make sure we're not doing anything that we don't have to do that. And we also want to make sure that they're passing the exams and doing well at that. But the problem with this chart is that the sample sizes are too small. So if you have a couple of kids that have a bad exam, it drags the average
Yeah,
down.
absolutely.
And the schedule in a school of our size is always so difficult every year that they may just not be in a given year
Mhm.
getting access to things for that reason. And therefore, we should not run out of the room with our hair on fire over this chart because of the other chart showing performance being quite good. So that's your message.
I would agree with that.
And I'll also just add to Greg that I think that a lot of times, and I don't mean to, but I think when a student wants to be, when the teacher or a parent wants to encourage a student to stretch themselves, because it's so nuanced, I think a lot of teachers pull back a little bit because of the risk if they're not going to do well, inhibits them from wanting to take that risk. And I think that because we're such a small school, that becomes tricky, right? So if Susie wants to take the class and really push herself to take a risk, but it feels like a much bigger risk on the other side with the teacher because that number can really bring it down significantly. And I've seen that happen a little bit where you're like, would love her, but I don't know. I think there's pressure on both sides.
I mean, I'm sure that our students I'm sure our teachers want our students to do well and to be in the place where they're going to have the most
Succeed.
success.
Yes.
That I'll have to think about and ask more about.
It's just something that I've seen over a lot from a time is that sometimes it would be really great, but because we're such a small school
Yeah.
and that grade for our school means a lot too, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be a little tricky with it.
The feeling that I get though overall from our high school teachers is that they want kids to stretch themselves. In fact, they are very open to kids waiving themselves into higher level classes, even if they wouldn't normally be recommended for that, because they just feel like, hey, if this student thinks that they want to do it, we should
Good.
give them a chance to do it.
Great.
That is not to say I have had a conversation with every single teacher about that,
No.
but by and large, that's what I'm hearing.
Great. Okay.
Is this only public schools?
There are some private schools on the list.
Oh, and is it everybody, all the public schools?
Oh, yes, all the public schools in Connecticut. I can show you the list, but
I
I'm
mean, so
noticing
theoretically, we're competing with Choate in some of these numbers.
that's a good question. I know I saw Catholic schools on the list. I don't know if I saw private schools like independent private schools like that. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, because that would
Good question.
obviously throw.
I'm
things.
thinking not because they don't necessarily take the SAT. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I will find out about that. Like who's on the list. I just remember seeing some Catholic schools there, and that's what's on my mind about that. But I'll go back and double check that. All right, the next is high school graduation, on track to high school graduation. You're going to see a little drop there in the 4-year. We were thinking that we have a few students in our transition program this year that we did not have the year prior. So you'll see we went from 100% of 4-year graduation down a couple of percentage points there. And that's understandable. Again, every student is more than 2 percentage points when you're talking about the 12th graders, you know. Next slide. Oh, sorry.
What's the difference between on track and 4-year?
Percentage of 9th graders on track for high school graduation, which is the blue line. Percentage of 9th graders earning at least 6 full year credits in the year. And then high school graduation rates is the percentage of first-time ninth graders who graduated with a regular high school diploma in 4 years or less. All right. Next one is post-secondary entrance. The definition or the explanation is the percentage of the graduating class who enrolled in a 2 or 4 year post-secondary institution anytime during the first year after high school graduation. So that's the change from over the last 3 years. And 2 more. This one's physical fitness. And the orange line shows the fitness rate. And the orange line is the participation rate and the blue line is the fitness rate. That is the fitness rate is the percentage of students that are meeting or exceeding the health fitness zone standard in all 4 areas of the Connecticut physical fitness test. That applies to 4th, 6th, and 8th graders, and also every high school student takes the physical fitness test once during high school. So that's multiple grades. Yeah.
This is a really interesting inversion here.
Yeah.
The more kids that participate, the worse they perform, and the fewer that participate, the better they perform. What does this say about our?
Well, remember, this is really apples to oranges here, because if you are reporting 4th, 6th, 8th, and high school students, think of that's a totally different group from one year to the next, right? The 4th graders of 1 year are very different from the 4th graders of the next year. I don't know, Greg, about that, the correlation there, but it is an interesting.
Well, what it would tend to suggest is that by and large, our children aren't fit. That's what it's suggesting, because if more of them participate and they do poorer, and fewer of them participate and they do better, it means you've got selection going on. So that seems to be. I'm not sure that maybe the numbers are small, and that's not what it means, but that's what it would tend to suggest.
It looks that way, but I'm not sure that. I agree with you. I'm not sure that's what it means. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Right. Don't all of ours participate? In what years will we not have 100% participation?
We think that this drop in participation has to do with how we are giving the tests in high school. Any student can take the test at any point during high school. And if you are missing some students in a certain year because more of them decided to take PE in junior year, and the year this was reported, some kids didn't take it, it looks like we didn't get 100% participation. If we made every sophomore take PE, like some districts do, we would be sure to capture every single kid. But because they can take it any year, it sort of leads to this. I'm not worried about this, because our PE teachers are diligent about making sure that every kid is taking it at some point. But I do think it's a little misleading. It looks like we've got kids missing and we don't.
Well, and another reason why I think what it looks like is not what it is. We have so many kids participating in team sports, and they're winning bloody state championships.
Good
I
point.
have a suspicion that this does not indicate that they're not fit.
That's right. That's right. All right. Last graph we're going to look at is arts access. And the description of arts access is the percentage of students in grades 9 through 12 participating in at least one dance, theater, music, visual, or media arts course in the school year. So we see that drop. It's a 10 percentage point drop. It's all of our high school students, and asking some questions. You know, what's going on there? I think going back to what Lori said about the schedule, I think we've opened up some opportunities for kids with this 8-period schedule that we might see this head up again. You know, we're still above the target that the state sets, but something we want to make sure that we're monitoring and studying. And then just my last slide is celebrations, honestly. So Region 12 has showed consistent growth in our overall accountability index over the last 3 years. That was the very first graph I showed you. All 3 elementary schools were rated as a category 1 out of category 1 through 5 and received recognition as schools of distinction. Boothry School was noted as a high performance and high growth school for all students in language arts and math. Burnham School was noted as a high performance and great improvement school. Washington Primary, high performance and high growth for all students in language arts. And Chapag was also, didn't get a School of Distinction award or recognition, but was rated as a Category 2 school, again, out of 5 categories, with 1 being the highest.
So hot off the press.
Yeah.
Thanks to Angela during the meeting, US News and World Report just put out the top best 50 top elementary schools in Connecticut. Washington Primary is ranked second. And Booth is 24.
Nice, that's great.
And but too
Right,
small.
right.
But kudos to Washington Primary School for being number
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Number 1 is in New Canaan.
Mhm.
And so you have the top in the state. So top in the state. So you have, so first one is in New Canaan. Second is Washington Primary. Third is Greenwich. Fourth is Fairfield. Fifth is Ridgefield. Sixth is New Canaan.
Good
So-
company, but I want to really give a shout out to Booth though on this too, because after they were the first, they were number
Yeah.
1, they dropped, I think, to number 40 or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going back up, and they made a tremendous stride up.
24 is impressive and amazing, 100%.
Totally.
Oh, no,
I mean, they were awarded with high, not only high performance, but high growth, both language arts and math. That means the growth is the most important thing to pay attention to.
But also, once you've had the number 1 and number 2 schools in the state, that should tell you something, that they're consistently excellent. And there may be some numerical things that cause them to not be number 1 in a given year, but they're really top flight, or they wouldn't be there. And clearly Burnham is with them. Unfortunately, they don't get rated.
So we're talking about 2 different reports. then.
correct.
But what you're seeing here, they glean a lot of that if you look at how they score, because they score SAT, they score nationally, they score by state. They use a lot of that information for this.
So where can we find the category information? Where would that be publicly?
That is also right on that etsite.ct.gov website. I can tell you.
On the State Department?
Yes.
It does, yes.
Etsite.ct.gov. In order to get the highest performing, they had to have, it's based on your overall.
Microphone.
accountability index.
Mike,
Whatever your overall accountability index score is, that is how they decide whether you're category 1 or 2 or 3. And category 4 and 5 is for schools that are not performing well and often require support and assistance from the state.
Can I ask a question about Chapaga's category 2?
Yeah.
So historically, is that stasis? Is that an improvement? Is that a fallback?
That's a great
Like-
question. I can get back to you on the specific Chapag accountability index, because remember I said that we were looking at district scores, but there are reports for individual schools. I'm happy to come back with that information.
Yeah, I'd just be curious because obviously our elementary schools are doing great and category 2 is great, but how is it that we can get that same performance at the middle and high school level?
Yep.
Carrie, I want to just thank you for really this deep dive. You did a marvelous job with it. You clearly know this stuff, and it's very helpful to the board to understand that you made it really accessible. Thank you so much.
absolutely. I
Thank
was
you.
thinking the same thing. Carrie, you really make it so very clear.
I mean, we
really
could talk, I
appreciate
could
it.
talk for probably 4 more hours about this stuff because there's so much in here, but it's thanks for listening and
Yeah.
asking really good questions. And I think
Yeah.
it's just important that we're keeping an eye on some of these things and we're making sure that we're addressing concerns. and-
Yeah, it's great. And I think your presentation lends itself to then having really great questions being asked too. So it goes hand in hand. So thank you very much, Carrie. Really appreciate it. Anybody have any other questions? No? May I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Everybody have a great evening.